for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine. Pierre Mansour caught the wine bug after drinking a bottle of 1982 Château Léoville-Las-Cases with his Lebanese dad. After jobs at the antique wine company, Brothers and Vinopolis, he moved to the Wine Society in 2000. Now director of wine, is in charge of a team of buyers who are responsible for one of the best and best value ranges on the planet. Passionate Hispanophile and music lover, Pierre is a fascinating and insightful interviewee. Hello, Pierre, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tim.
You are in glamorous Stevenage, I believe, aren't you?
I am at the moment. I'm actually at head office at the Wine Society where I work, and it's where the Wine Society moved to in 1965, and it houses pretty mumuch all of the wine that we sell in a year.
You've got some of my wine there as well, so make sure you look after it. Stevenage, home of Lewis Hamilton, I believe. It's its other claim to fame, apart from being the headquarters of the Wine Society, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Lewis Hamilton, who's the amazing driver, and also the writer Ken Follett as well.
Oh, well, that's not bad. He's a wine lover, actually, isn't he? I interviewed him once about wine.
He is a wine lover.
Nice bloke. Yeah,
and he's a member of the Wine Society.
Oh,
we had lunch together here, him and I. So yes.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about you, because you were born and brought up in England, but you're half Lebanese, aren't you? Is that from your mum's side or your dad's side?
So that's from my dad's side. So my father is sort of Lebanese of Palestinian origin, essentially. So his family, when he was 10, it was 1948 in Palestine, and that was a time when there were problems going there and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into the politics, but essentially his family left Palestine, Haifa, and moved to Beirut and lived there from 1948 onwards. And
Mansour sounds French, is it? I mean,
I don't think it's not a French name, actually. It's actually, so it depends what part of the world. There's some parts of the world where Mansour is the first name, but in Lebanon and Palestine, Mansour it's almost like the Smith.
Is it?
A very, very popular name, yes.
I think it was something really glamorous and exotic. But I mean, were you born? I mean, did your dad speak French? Was he francophone?
Yes, so he spoke his two main languages. His first language is Arabic and French. He was educated, in the French system, because that was the system they have in Beirut, in Lebanon. But in terms of the French influence, I mean, although my name is French, the reason I have a French name is because my mum, who is English from up north in England, when she met my dad, in the UK, I was born. I'm the eldest of three boys, and we moved straight back to Beirut. This was early 70s. So my mum had this vision that her children would grow up being educated in French and speaking French fluently. But unfortunately, the Civil War in the early 70s, after my brother was born in 1973 in Beirut, the family came back to the UK. So we all have French names, but our command of the French language is very much schoolboy French.
But I mean, your parents are both medics, weren't they? But was there a connection with food and wine? Because your dad was a wine drinker, wasn't he?
He was a wine drinker, but I mean, I guess there wasn't in particular. No, I mean, my in terms of, I guess the Lebanese sort of heritage, very kind of Mediterranean approach to food. And, food was the center of everything in terms of bringing family together, and communities together. So food was always important, but I wasn't brought up it wasn't fancy, fine food. And it wasn't really until I was at university and my father had reached a stage of his sort of medical career where he was doing quite well. He had good disposable income, and he started collecting, along with his best friend, some fantastic bottles of wine, and got really into top end, particularly claret, and going out and eating at really top end restaurants. And I was around at the same time, obviously. And
sounds great.
And so I was exposed to it at quite a late age. And yeah, it was amazing.
Because you studied French, didn't you, at the University of Westminster? Did you have a year abroad? I did French as well. I got a year in Avignon, which was pretty nice.
Yes, I did. So I spent the degree I did it. Actually, I was just in France for 6 months. I was in Paris for 6 months, but I have to admit, slightly embarrassingly, that at that stage, I still didn't know what career I wanted to do.
Who did?
Yes, exactly. And I guess I looked at wine more as a vehicle of alcohol than anything else. So my appreciation of wine was at quite a sort of low level, put it that way. So again, it wasn't really spending time in France that exposed me to top wines or gave me the bug.
Yeah. But I've read somewhere that you had a kind of eureka moment, and you've alluded to this really with your dad. I think you had a bottle of Château Léoville-Las-Cases, 1982, was it? I mean, did you drink it with him, and did you think, oh, well, maybe I can make a career out of it? It's not just the alcohol, right?
Yeah, it was, you know what, it was with my dad and his friend, and we were out for dinner somewhere. And it was the first time I remember really clearly. I can really, it's so clear in my memory. And the wine was served. I didn't know anything about it. I knew it was meant to be a good wine. And I was so struck at how every time I picked the glass up, I got something different, a different flavor, a different experience. And that really baffled me, because I was comparing it to the wines I was drinking with my university mates. And I was kind of like, hold on, these two things are called wine, but the experience I'm getting is so different. So I wanted to just learn a little bit more. It really piqued my interest. And that's when I went on the Christie's wine course, which essentially was 4 or 5 vertical tastings from key regions in France, and the rest is history. And that was when I was kind of like, actually, I think this is such a fascinating subject. I want to learn more. I felt at the time I also had. I felt I had taste, which sounds utterly presumptuous, but I felt I had taste, and it was the taste that was fascinating me, and I just wanted to learn more, really.
Yeah. I mean, you were taught by, I think, Stephen Spurrier, one of the great wine writers, and Clive Coates, MW, very famous Burgundy expert, neither with us anymore, sadly. I mean, they kind of inspired you, didn't they?
Yeah, completely inspired me. And, in particular, actually, Stephen, and that was because not only was it the course that he designed, but a few years later, one of my second job in the wine industry at Vinopolis. He was involved with that organization as a sort of consultant, and I had to work quite closely with him, and he really mentored me. Yeah. I'd only been in the wine industry for about 2 years, and I'd spent time with Stephen, and he is a legend, and I just found his way, his charm, his gentlemanliness, and his just generosity in sharing and guiding me. Absolutely helped sort of set foundations for me in the industry.
I think there were 2 great things, or lots of great things about him, but the one you just mentioned, which is kind of generosity, not just with wines, but with his time. But also I thought he was kind of ahead of his time in another sense, in that, he was an expert in French wines. Le Cave de Madeleine was based in Paris, but he was really interested in wines from elsewhere. I mean, not just the famous Judgment of Paris, where he put these California wines up against the French wines and they beat them. But, whenever you go to tastings of obscure regions, he was always there, a Romanian tasting and he'd be there, or a Lebanese tasting, or a Greek tasting, or a Japanese tasting. And I love that openness of mind, which is not always typical of people of his generation, really.
100%. And I think it's that desire to just discover. And he was just I think his purity or the way he looked at wine as a purist.
Yeah.
But he also understood the importance of quality and balance. But yeah, so open-minded.
Yeah. I mean, you got your first job, antique wine company, after the Christie's thing. Then you were Berry Brothers, I think, weren't you, at Heathrow? Right. And then Vinopolis, you just mentioned, which is kind of event space and wine museum. I just wonder, of those three, which job taught you the most? I mean, they're all people facing, which is definitely one of your skills. I think you're good at managing people and getting on with people. Which did you think, I learned a lot from that? Was it Vinopolis?
It's a really interesting question, and I'm going to fudge my answer. But you know what? Each of those taught me something. I think the first thing was an antique wine company, very small company, and very sales orientated, owned and run by a gifted, talented salesman that could sell anything. It just happened to be wine. So I learned a lot about just sales technique. Yeah. And I think that served me really well. I think selling in any industry is, whether you're selling yourself, whether you're selling a service, a product, is just invaluable. Then when I went to Berry Brothers, that retail experience, so I was in the duty-free shops in Heathrow. The retail experience is second to none. And I genuinely believe that to be a good wine buyer, you have to have experience working in retail or sales. Yeah. You need to understand what it's like being on the other side of the table. So I'd say those were the two really antique wine company in BBR that taught me the most. Vinopolis was, I joined, they were a startup, and being a startup, I was thrown into the deep end, left, right and centre. And I guess that kind of just helped me use a bit more of my initiatives, a bit more of my initiative.
That's no bad thing, is it? And from there, you moved to the Wine Society, 2000, and you've been there ever since, really. I mean, just quickly, for people who don't know what the society is, it was founded back in 1874, I think, and it's got a really weird genesis, wasn't it? The creation myth, if you like, was that it was connected with the Albert Hall and a bunch of Portuguese wines, right? What happened to the wines?
Yeah, so it's a really kind of funny thing, actually. So yeah, there was an exhibition at the Albert Hall, common at the time, where different craft people would show their wares at these exhibitions, and some Portuguese wine growers sent over wine to show at the 1874 exhibition. The exhibition in 1874 was a bit of a failure, so there was a load of wine left over, and the Portuguese growers said to the organisers of the exhibition at the Albert Hall, said, look, don't send the wine back. It's complicated enough to get it back. Just come up with some reason. Use it thoughtfully. And so the architect of the Albert Hall, Major General Scott, was given the job of coming up with ideas to use
shifting the wine.
Right? Yeah. And what he did was just organise a series of lunches, basically, to enjoy the wines with, wine lovers. When they ran out of the wine, they all sat round and said, actually, why don't we all just club together to ship our next shipment of wine? And that's kind of how the Wine Society was founded. So it's a cooperative. It's owned by we don't have external shareholders. We only have members who are our customers. So it's a very unique.
And how many members do you have now? Can you say?
So yes, I can say we've got 183,000 active members. So those are members who are buying from us regularly. In a year.
Regularly is once a year, is it, or more?
Yeah, it's at least once a year.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, how do people join? Just if they're listening, I mean, is there a vetting process?
There used to be, actually, but we've relaxed that a little bit now that we're a slightly more modern organisation. But you can join online. It's really easy. It's £40. It's for life. It's not a subscription. And actually, as soon as you join, you get £20 to put towards your first order. So essentially it's £20. It's a great organisation.
Well, without declaring an interest, I mean, I have no financial interest in the success of it, but I buy lots of wine for the Wine Society, and I think you guys do an amazing job. So you started out there as tastings and events manager. I think you did that, 4 years? And then you became a trainee buyer. Was that something you'd always wanted to do? Like, you'd done the sales side, you'd done tastings and events, you'd done the hard yards. I mean, did you always want to get out there and buy the stuff?
I did, yeah, and actually, as soon as I decided to start working in wine, which was my first job following uni, I wanted to be a buyer. That's what I wanted to do. So yes, I did, and the opportunity at the Wine Society, was an incredible one. That they were, they had a trainee buyer vacancy. And so I sort of started, I cut my teeth. They gave me the USA, which as a category at the time for the Wine Society was I guess the low risk one.
Small.
In case, small. And then just in case, I didn't do a good job, the risk was low and the impact was low to our membership.
But you changed some stuff, didn't you? You started doing Ridge, didn't you, on Primeur and things like that?
We did. Yeah, we were already working with Ridge, and Ridge Vineyards has always had a special place with our members, and I think it's because they've just been so modest and realistic in the way they position their wines, and the wines are amazing. So US, I didn't have as much influence because it was a small category. There wasn't much opportunity to influence it. But what came next for me was Spain. Yeah. And, that kind of fell into my lap by chance. There was a bit of a rejiggle of areas, and Spain was up for grabs, and it was given to me. And Spain really, really, really important to me. I mean, as you always do whenever you're given a new region, and it takes you a couple of years to get sort of under your feet under the table. But I don't know whether it was the sort of Lebanese Mediterranean element of my culture, but I just had real synergy with the Spanish themselves. Yeah, loved their approach, loved their wines. Was really fortunate. This was in 2008 that I took on Spain at a time where the shifts that we've now seen in Spain winemaking, were just starting. And so it was a really exciting time to be part of that.
So there'll be huge changes in Spain, we're talking nearly 20 years, aren't we? I mean, I just wonder which Spanish region is the most exciting right now? I mean, you're not buying it anymore, but you're still overseeing it, aren't you? And yes. Harriet is obviously buying Spain now, and she's very passionate about it as well. Which bits have changed most for you in the time you've been following it and loving it?
I think the bits that have changed the most are, I'd say, Galicia, particularly from in the reds. Albarino and Godello were pretty. I mean, Godello is an incredible, great variety and has wonderful potential. But yeah, Galicia reds, I think, are really exciting. From a traditional area, I mean, at the time I took on Spain, I remember being so disappointed with white Rioja. But now the quality of what I would call proper white Rioja that's using indigenous grapes and aged, very carefully in oak, in contact with oxygen or not, I think is really exciting. The other area which actually I was out in the Canaries a few weeks ago.
Oh, good.
I have to say I've tasted, and Harriet, who buys our Spanish wines, has taken on some Tenerife Lanzarote wines. I think they're really, really exciting wines. I'm hoping that we are getting behind them, but I'm hoping that they resonate with our members too.
Let's hope so. No, she came to the tasting I put on in Lanzarote, which was great. So I think she's probably been before, but no, I was delighted to see that. And yet the Society's membership is still overwhelmingly Francophile. I think 60% of what you sell is French. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's still we sell, mostly French. but and that's stayed around the same. But there's I think the things that have increased most for us are Italy and Spain. So Italy's number 2, Spain is number 3 for us. We're seeing incredible growth for Portugal. Portugal in the last 12 months has still wines from Portugal across the board in terms of across the price point. So Portugal's now in our top 10, and then Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and Chile. But yeah, France is still really important to our membership.
But how do you persuade people to be a little less conservative? I mean, how do you persuade them to buy, I don't know, I mean, you've got some great things on your list from I don't know, from Turkey, for example, which I loved, or Poland, haven't you? Or, I mean,
Yes.
you know, Matthew's done a fantastic job with Greece. How do you get these sort of francophiles to say, all right, I'll give something from Poland a go?
You know, I think it's, our members really trust what we do. And I think they also are very, very, they love discovery. They're very curious. And so we do make the effort in terms of our comms and promotions to give space to some of these new and quirky, more esoteric styles. I think the other thing that we have, which we don't talk a huge amount about, but we've got something called the Society's Promise, which is basically, as a member, if you whatever wine you buy from us, if you simply don't like it, we'll give you a refund. You know, there's no rules around it. If you don't like it, we'll refund you. And actually, we make it so easy for you that you don't even need to call us. You can just go onto the website, you log on as your account, and you just say, I don't like it, and we credit you. And I think that security, that guarantee means people are able to try more, you know, they're more likely, more confident to try different things.
And people don't abuse it, do they?
Actually, Tim, it's surprising. I mean, when we set this up a few years ago, obviously internally we were like, oh, people are going to, but it is amazing that no, people don't abuse it. But we record it. And if we see a sort of trend, we will call up the member and just say, actually, you know, how can we help? Something's not quite working here. So how can we help you pick the kind of wines that you like? That trust goes a long way.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you now have this kind of managerial role. I mean, I think you're called Director of Wine now, aren't you, since 2019? What does that entail? I mean, do you still go on trips, or are you basically overseeing all the other buyers?
Yeah, a bit of both. So I travel less because I don't have direct buying responsibility. But I still get to travel. I'm going to Greece in a few weeks for my first time with Matthew. So I do travel, but essentially, my role is sort of overseeing the team. Got a cracking team, 8 buyers who, you know, split the world between them, specialize in those areas. So my job is that. The other element, and partly sort of around my decision to, you know, essentially I was finding it both from a workload perspective, too much to buy and do the director role, but we've got this new strategy, which I'm so excited about and I'm directly involved in, which is in fine wine. So we're making quite a lot over the next 3 years, a lot of changes to how we handle, buy and sell fine wine, which I'm really, really excited about. So I wanted to be able to dedicate more time to that.
I mean, you know, you've got these 8 buyers and they enjoy an enormous amount of autonomy. I mean, it's a very sought after job, I think, to work for the Wine Society. It's why people stay there for so long, isn't it? I just want to ask you, what makes a good buyer? I mean, the 8 you've got, they're all very different personalities. But, you know, what makes a good buyer? Just, you know, you've been one yourself, a very good buyer.
Sure. So, I mean, there are the sort of obvious things, good taster, good at negotiating, really relationships, I think is a key part of that in terms of, because actually when you have a really strong relationship that is a win-win relationship for both the Wine Society and for the producer, you know, that's terribly important. Curiosity, passion. But I think that the one thing that's really hard to measure, but is so critical is just that instinct and gut feel of there's something about this wine that I've come across or this person that I have met. The buyers still travel a lot. We don't hold back on travel budget. We think it's really important that buyers spend time out in vineyards, able to look at people in the eye. You know, Tim, that the best producers, vine growing production, they're farmers, you know, and they care. The good people really care about the wine, about who they're selling their wine to. So that kind of instinct, I think, goes a long, long way.
I mean, the world of wine has changed enormously, you know, and since you've been at the Wine Society. When is it 2000 you joined? So how's it going to change over the next 20 years? What are you looking at now and thinking that's really going to have an impact on what we're doing?
So obviously climate change, without a, you know, we're already seeing the impact that is happening on our growers. I think that some of the exciting and the way that they're adapting, which is really exciting, but I think we're going to, I think it's already starting, but I think we've sort of come out of an era where the winemaker was the superstar. I think it's now going to be the growers are the superstars, the viticulturalists are the superstars.
Yeah.
I think most of the innovation that's happening is in the vineyard as a response to climate change.
Interesting.
So I think that's something. I think for wine drinkers, we're going to be spoilt for even more choice of terrific wines. You know, the quality of wine around the world now is just so sensational. But we're going to see, and are already seeing, the emergence of new styles, new terroirs, new grapes, like some of the hybrid Peewee grapes. You know, who would have thought that Aligoté in Burgundy, you know, now actually, 20, 30 years ago, the wines were lean and mean, but Aligoté in Burgundy, still sparkling wine from England, Pinot Noir from Essex. So I think there's going to be so much more choice. The other thing is, I think, from a fine wine perspective, and there's something that you wrote about a couple of weeks ago, and you said fine wine can and does come from anywhere. And I think that's the other really exciting trend, that fine wine is no longer just the traditional classics, but I mean, we've tasted that Polish wine that we started selling. It's an extraordinary wine. It is a fine wine. So I think it's exciting times, but I think there are some challenges also for the wine industry, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, what about consumers? I mean, you know, there's always this stuff being written saying that younger people aren't drinking. I don't know, what's the average age of your membership? I mean, if they're Francophile, it's probably getting on a bit, as he says. As someone in my 60s.
In your 60s, you're our average age, Tim. It's interesting, you know, because there's been a lot talked about, you know, younger people not drinking, blah, 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 blah. What we see actually is our younger members are more curious. They explore our range more. They over-index on buying fine wine. Our older members stop buying fine wine.
That's interesting.
Probably because they've already got wine in their cellars or their reserves that they're starting to drink with maturity. And I think the sort of information economy that we're in now and will be in forever really lends itself. You know, youngsters are so curious. They want to understand about the things that they buy and the brands they buy from, and they can find that information really easily. And so wine lends itself really well to that. We're quite excited about the younger generation. They are drinking less in volume, but they are spending more per bottle.
Well, I think that's pretty good, isn't it?
It's very good, yeah.
And I think that thing you said about, the growers being the growers being the superstars of the future, that buys into this whole idea of origin. And I think that, it's a huge generalisation, I know, but younger people tend to be more interested than people of my age about precisely where something comes from, what they're putting into their body, and whether it's organic or biodynamic or natural, in inverted commas, whatever that means. I think they think more maybe and just buy reflexively less. Should we say that?
Yes, yeah? I would totally agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, you talked about these older members who've got lots of wine reserves and stuff, and I'm one of them in a sense. And a lot of them would have bought en primeur French wine, particularly Bordeaux and Burgundy to a lesser extent, because there's less of it, really. But I mean, what future is there for en primeur? I mean, is it something that's still a big deal for you? Because it would have been a big part of your turnover, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So it's still a big part of our turnover. I mean, it's. I mean, I can be open. We've got nothing to hide. We publish our accounts, but we turn over around 150 million a year, and en primeur for us is about sort of 12 million a year.
God,
so
it's
big. It's not the main part, but it's an important part. And there is no doubt we are seeing it creak in terms of essentially, I think it's lost its reason. If you're a consumer, it's to an extent lost its, this is the reason to buy from en primeur. So in the past, buying en primeur would almost certainly guarantee that you would be paying the lowest price. Now, you look at recent en primeur campaigns from the big traditional regions, you can buy older vintages that are fully mature that are sometimes less than, if not the same price as the current vintage. So it's kind of like, well,
what's the point?
Yeah. So
is that mostly Bordeaux you're talking about, really?
Mostly Bordeaux, yeah, because I think with areas that produce very, very scarce quantities of wine, so like Burgundy, there's still a reason, because actually if you want to get hold of a wine produced at tiny quantities, that's possibly the only time you can get hold of it. I think Bordeaux has a huge opportunity for the campaign next year. So 2025, on paper, we're seeing that the quality is probably going to be very good. Quantity will be down. They did lower the prices for the 24 vintage, which is comparable to 25, not as good a vintage. If Bordeaux can come out next year with a better vintage and reduce prices again, I think they will re-energize the en primeur market.
Well, that's fingers crossed. Really.
Fingers crossed.
Let's talk a little bit about sustainability, because that's something you guys take very seriously, and particularly things like bottle weights. But what other measures have you introduced? Has bottle weight been the main thing?
Bottle weight was the sort of first. So what we did when we started on sustainability, the first thing we did was a carbon footprint report, which took about a year actually, and what came out of that was that glass was by far the biggest contributor to our carbon emissions, about over 30%. So we basically started to address bottle weights and have had huge success with that, with the support of the Sustainable Wine Roundtable. They've done a lot of work on it and got a whole community of different retailers. So, we've done a lot of work around that. Last year we took out 250 tons of glass.
Wow.
Simply by asking our producers to lighten their bottles. And we're also introducing other formats. So bag and box has done really well for us. We've done own label bag and box, and this year we will have sold about £1 million worth of wines in bag and box. The other element of sustainability is working more closely with our producers and helping them with sort of environmental or sort of nature-based support.
Is that what you call climate and nature? You have a program, don't you, call something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, the climate and nature program. Yeah, which is this is a really interesting thing. So I had never heard of it before, but something called insetting rather than offsetting. So we had a commitment to become carbon neutral, and we could have spent X thousand pounds on offsetting in order for the business to say, yep, we're carbon neutral. Actually, the advice we were given was, given that you work in, our product is agricultural, you're better off putting that same money and you inset it or invest it directly into your supply chain. The drawback is we won't be able to claim carbon neutrality, but we're quite happy not claiming carbon neutrality, because actually what we're doing is we're giving that same funding to our producers. Our producers apply for funding. We had the first round last year, 12 was successful. We fund them on all sorts of things that essentially have regenerative viticulture at its heart. That first round, if you add it all up, is resulted in us planting 3 kilometres of hedgerows, 950 trees, and so on and so forth.
Well,
so
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a really smart way, and our growers are responding really, really well to it. So, and it's great because we could have just ticked the offsetting box by spending some money, but that wouldn't actually create a more resilient vineyard. This way, over time, we think we're helping in a small way to help contribute to hopefully a resilient vineyard.
You're putting something back in. Listen, we've managed to talk for nearly 35 minutes without mentioning music, and you're a huge music fan. I mean, I have to thank you because I like Niels Fram, the pianist, because of you. But tell us when this kind of music thing started, because you were a DJ for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, I can't play music. But I'm an active listener. I'm that sort of annoying person that if I put some music on at home, it's kind of like everyone has to be quiet. I want to listen to it. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I love listening to music. I spend a lot of my time listening to music. I was an 18-year-old during as the emergence of the rave era started here in the UK in the late 1980s. So I have a very kind of penchant towards electronic music. And I did DJ for a while, actually.
Were you a DJ in raves?
I was, yeah. So, it was very serious. I was doing it all over the world. I was getting paid good money, and I maintained it in my first few years working in wine, but then decided actually I felt closer or more of an affinity with wine people than the music side of things. Right. I'd probably be dead now if I'd...
I think you probably would, because a lot of late nights and probably a lot of drugs. Not I'm telling you were taking any drugs, but and you're a big vinyl man, aren't you? I mean, how big's your vinyl collection?
Yeah, so my vinyl collection, because at that time DJing, it was all vinyl and only vinyl. So I built up a crazy collection of about 7,000 vinyl.
Oh my God.
I have since spent the last, so when COVID hit, during the lockdowns, I started going through my vinyl. So I've now rationalized that right down, because there was stuff.
To 6,000.
Yes.
Any good music tips? Anything you're listening to at the moment that you think the listeners would like?
Yeah, I mean, I my taste is really broad, but I like things like James Blake, Michael Kiwanuka, who are just I'm quite into sort of minimalist music, but they both got beautiful voices. You mentioned Niels Fram. I think he's a genius, beautiful pianist, also electronic. For me, he is like the Pinot Noir of music.
If he ever plays, we should go and hear him, actually, because I bet it's amazing to hear his.
I've seen him live 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Amazing.
Tell me next time.
Yes, I will do, yeah.
That final question is, how do you get away from wine? I mean, you've said that music is a big thing for you. I think you like keeping fit, don't you? You're a squash player, tennis player?
Yeah, I play a bit of tennis and squash. I mean, I would say I like keeping healthy. I wouldn't call myself unfit, but I love being with family. I like cooking. I like being outside. My wife has horses. I'm not a horse rider, but I love being around the horses and out with them and just sort of pottering about. and doing stuff like that. And she keeps sort of teasing me and saying, well, should we get a vineyard one day? And I'm like, well,
no,
if we win the lottery, because you just, yeah, exactly.
My advice is to stay where you are, because you're doing a fantastic job at the Wine Society. Pierre, it's been brilliant talking to you, my friend, and I'll see you soon over a bottle of good Spanish wine, I hope. See ya.
Thank you very much.
What a pleasure that was. You can see why Pierre is such a good manager, as well as an excellent buyer in his own right. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is Michael Saccanini from Sei Solo in Ribera del Duero. Join me then. Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @TimAtkin and on Instagram @TimAtkinMW. See you next week.